welcome to Last Week On. My name is Adam Straughan, and we are back covering Invincible, Season 3, Episode 6. All I can say is, I'm sorry, but before I get into that, I have a very special returning guest. So he is the host of Slave S98, he's the co-host of My Bloody Judy. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the podcast, Ian Carlos Crawford. How you doing, Ian?
Hi, Adam. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good, thank you. It's Ian and I have just recorded for My Bloody Judy as well, so like, if we start blurring things together, if we say that Mark and Eve were on an island somewhere and lost, just bear with us, because there's a lot going on. But yeah, no, I'm really, really good. I'm excited to talk about this episode because some ways I loved it, and some ways I'm just like, meh. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts before we jump in?
Yeah, I don't know. By the end, I felt a little like, oh. Like I know... it felt like this is a plot that should have happened last season. Like that's, I kept being like, because I know we had seen this guy before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Like
I just,
briefly.
yeah, I was like, I know that like we briefly saw it, but it felt like, I don't know. It just felt like he's been mad for a long time. He worked at this place. Like, why are we waiting till now?
Right.
Yeah, it like this could have been an episode in season 2. And it also, he never felt like a threat. The problem is that Mark is so strong that like he didn't really. I was like, this doesn't feel like this is a threat to Mark at all.
Right. And like, yeah, it's very much that. Like, it's kind of B tier villain that they're like building up to be like as if he's A tier. It's like, it's not like Mark's fighting Battle Beast again. Do you know what I mean? Like someone that can put up a decent fight. But I guess like him being in, it's like laboring the point, which I said last time, I hope they don't keep doing this. And it is a little bit more of it when it's like, they're laboring the whole point of, oh, you know, everything is not black and white. There are shades of gray. And then, you know, this character, he has every right to be as pissed off as what he is, right? I mean, like literally, he lost family through Mark and Omni-Man. So like he has a right to be annoyed, but like they are laboring this same point again. And it's not just through him, like the conversation that they have later on with Oliver, you know, like it's the same kind of point again. So like we get it. But like, yeah, like I don't know, like I liked the way this kind of character like connected with, it was his family when Mark lost that woman, when like he was holding onto her arm. It was like that guy's like, you know, family that happened to. So like I like the connection there.
Yeah.
But still I'm like, you know, there's bigger things for me happening. It's like the Batman v Superman comment that I made last time. It's very much that. Like we see in that movie, which I'm not a very big fan of, but we see why Batman is annoyed at Superman because of all the destruction, the people dying around him doing what he's doing. And we see that literally in this episode as well. But yeah, it's cool that he's voiced by Aaron Paul. Like pretty big name there, right?
I was like, because you know how like Amazon does a thing, if you pause, it tells you.
Yes.
Because I was like, I know I recognize this voice. So I literally paused it so I could see. I found his voice very annoying. And I like Aaron Paul. He's a babe, but like he was doing like a grating thing with his voice. And I was like, for me, his voice ended up sounding like a 90s cartoon, a kid's cartoon villain. And because we were retreading, like you said, laboring the point of like, we've already done this. It did get a little tedious, the scenes with him for me after a while. I was like, yeah, I get it. He's mad. Like,
right. And like I'm waiting for him just to like turn around and just call Mark a bitch or something, just in like Jesse tone. But yeah, but there are things I actually did really like in this. But like, you know, and we'll kind of call them out as we go through. But obviously the big themes of this is like, you know, somebody, like the themes of like somebody being two people, right? And that's like a big thing they kept laboring. So like, you know, about Omni-Man, can he exist as two people because they did see him as two people? And then, you know, Mark has questioned that about himself, like with his own family, with like Oliver, with himself, like when he goes to the memorial later on. But yeah, obviously we'll call through that. And it's like, they're interesting themes to explore. It is that good kind of dramatic stuff that I like in the superhero stuff, where it's not just like, you know, oh, these guys are gods, kill things, like, which we see thousands of times. But I like this, but I feel like I'm like, all right, come on. Like we've had a lot of this from episode 1.
yes,
let's move this along a little bit. So
yeah. And like it's weird because like you and I even talked about how there's a lot of different plot. I think almost this episode could have benefited from more of those B plots, because it's like,
yeah,
I was just telling you that I felt like we needed a little less of them, but then we get none of them. But in an episode where it's like, the main Mark stuff wasn't as interesting, and like, Adam, I'm not gonna lie, I can't stand Oliver. Like, I just can't, like, I tried. I really hate when people like, you know, like Buffy's my favorite show, right? I will, every character has like their place and whatever, like even like Riley and Kennedy, I defend because it's like, not because I like them so much, but I feel like I understand their place in the show. Oliver, they're not trying to make him a likable child. And like, if you're adding an annoying child, there has like we need something likable. And like, I think they're leaning too much like, look, he's a kid, he's an innocent, he doesn't understand. I'm like, right, but he can also crush a skull with his 2 fingers. So like, I'm not endeared to this child. I just find him annoying. We keep doing the thing where it's like, make sure you don't do this, Oliver. And then he fucking does it. And I'm like, we did this so many times.
Right. I think like the big thing with Oliver as well is that they're using him as like a plot device rather than a developed character.
Yeah.
So like, you know, like in particular in this episode when he's asking those questions about like, you know, oh well my dad, you know, did this and did this, he is like referencing themes of the show rather than feeling like, oh, like he's his own character with his own like stakes and everything like that. Whereas Mark and Eve and like even Omni-Man, like all of these other characters feel so fleshed out. And I know like we've grown with them, we've seen them from the start up until this point, but that's no justification for why Oliver can't have a little bit more of that. And like the little moments when like, you know, when we saw him with his friends in like that last episode and like, you know, he did that with the bullies and he didn't attack them. Like that's the character stuff that I like, you know? And then it's a shame that we don't get more of that. It's kind of him being used more of that device to kind of labor more of the themes of the show. And I'm like, okay, like I get it, and we've been getting this from episode 1, but like let's kind of move back along to the stuff that we're really excited for, right? And to be fair, like the end of the episode, like the after credit sting, that kind of stuff was I was like, ooh, I'm a bit more invested now because we're moving forward with something happening there. But yeah, let's jump into it, Ian. Anyway, let's get in. So episode starts, as I say, we have an introduction to the new character, Scott Duvall. Obviously he, you know,
when did we see him before, Adam? Because I know we did.
It was very briefly.
Okay.
Like way, like, you know, seasons ago. It was very briefly. But yeah, so obviously we get him, like he's chatting with his family, Jess, and obviously they're at that park with like Gretchen, I believe the child is called, and like he's talking. And like, I like when the show does this, though. I will admit, I like when we get to see like the humanizing of like, you know, the villain characters and everything like that, or like, you know, quote unquote villain in this case. I like this, right? So like we got this with like other characters that we've seen as well, like other potential villains. We've seen like the humanization of them, so it's made a bit more sense. And like, I do get, as I said earlier, I do understand why he's pissed off, because rightfully so, right? Like he's having this lovely moment with his family, then suddenly he sees Mark and Omni-Man like fighting, and then like, you know, he literally sees his family crushed, like after that big explosion when he goes to get coffee, and then like literally Mark is holding up like Jess's like arm and then just flies off. Like, so I get his motives, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, like we've been doing this.
Yeah, I have a hard time, and this is like a superhero media thing that they do. I have a like hard time with this. Kind of plays into what we're talking about with Yellow Jackets. When like people put the blame on someone else, and like, I don't know, it just like, it's like, yeah, he was fighting Omni-Man. We know this. What do you mean we need proof he didn't kill? There's proof. He held up Mark and let a train crash into him. Mark was like mostly like barely alive and unconscious. That's on camera. Like, I don't like, I'm just like, there's proof there, my dude. You got trauma because of your family. That's understandable. But like, you're just blaming, you're just like looking for an outlet. And like, I've been that outlet sometimes and I don't love it. So like, I just like, I don't have a defense. Like, I didn't find him tragic. Once it was like, once he thought he killed, God, what the hell's that guy's, the alien? He said his name in the episode. I forget.
Shipsmith.
Yeah. Because he thought he killed him. And he was kind of just like, oh, I killed the wrong person. Oh, well. And I was like, oh, fuck you, dude. Like, you're just like, you don't actually care what you're doing. You just want to feel like good. And like, you got vindicated. So I don't know. I like, he wasn't quite sympathetic to me. And like, I don't know. We also kept spending so much time with him.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, if you're going to get someone like Aaron Paul in to voice a character, he's not going to be in for 10 seconds. But, like, at the same time, I think the big thing for him is, like, I felt from him in the sense that he lost family through, like, Mark and Omni-Man. And, of course, like, I'm going to feel for that. But then at the same time, later on, when, like, he is so convinced of, like, no, like, everyone does not need to see them the way that, you know, people see them as heroes and like saviors. They need to see them the way that I see them. And like, it's showing you obviously the pursuit of trying to get vengeance is what changes you ultimately, right? And that's what happens with him. Like, you know, he literally fries his own family like later on because of that. And like, you know, I think that's the biggest thing that he's annoyed about as well. He keeps, and he even says later on, because he works at the GDA, and like he's like, look, like there should be a leash put on these people, right? Like they shouldn't just have free reign. And he says like, they accuse us of making mistakes while like they lose thousands of people, like thousands of people die in their wake. And that's kind of what Cecil's doing, really. Like Cecil's kind of like, Cecil isn't like moping about it and trying to like rally the troops. Cecil's is cutting through the bullshit, and is basically just saying, Cecil's the one that's like, look, I want to put a leash on Mark. I want to keep an eye on this, keep control of this. And he's doing it the right way. He's not kind of like trying to like go out there and broadcast to the rest of the world, everyone listen to me, these guys should not be trusted.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Obviously, it becomes his undoing later on, which is the big thing. And like, again, that plays with him, like two sides of him, like where he's so like wants to control the narrative, how people see people through his lens, that he loses himself in doing that, right? And then his own son looks at him like the way he looks at Mark and Omni-Man later on. But yeah, speaking of Oliver, we do get this scene, and when we see Oliver fighting the Elephant Man, which is a character we've seen before, and like Mark and Eve are just like watching unadvised. And I do like when that Elephant Man character was like, hey, am I just the training dummy? Like, what's going on? Like, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I did like that.
Right. But actually, I do like this scene more because of like, again, I know it's like laboring the point of like, when's Mark gonna learn? But, and I have like written down in my notes here when they're talking, and like he does bring up Nolan, and he's like, but I never knew Nolan as this mass murderer. I just knew him as dad and how much he treated my mom well. And like Mark kind of agrees with him to a sense. He's like, look, like, he also raised me. Like, I saw some nice sides to him. Like, I get it. And, and he says, like, Nolan saved a lot of lives as well, like, probably more than what he killed. And I'm like, hold on a second. Can we get a tally on how many people he's killed versus who he's saved? Because I'd like to see those numbers right now.
Yes, exactly. That's how I feel. I'm like, I get it, but like, that Mark's a hero. You saw Omni-Man attacking him. I just don't know. Like, I feel like this is like a be mad at the system, not at the person. Because would he have rather Mark did nothing?
Right. Yeah,
all those people would have died anyway. Like more of them would have. I'm just getting annoyed with Oliver because it's like, we already talked about this. We just talked about this last episode. Yeah. We talked about this the episode before that. We talked about the episode before that. Like, just shut up, you stupid goblin child. Like, it's just so annoying because it's like, I don't know. At this point, if I were Mark, I'd be like, hey, why don't you see the video of him using my body to murder a subway full of people? And then tell me that you think we should forgive him. Right. Like, when he's like, well, does no one deserve forgiveness? I felt like it was a very easy moment to be like, some things do, some things do not. Mass murder doesn't really like merit forgiveness. It just doesn't. And like, show him the video clips of their dad like smushing him into people and using his body to kill people. And it felt like, why are we leaving that out? Like,
right. And like, it shouldn't be them that's like forgiving Nolan. Like, Nolan should be begging them for forgiveness and apologizing. Like, that's really where all of this should be coming from. Because like, Nolan has got a lot of groveling, whether it'll work or not, has got a lot of groveling to do, So like, all of this should be coming from him. And I think like, they are hinting towards like Nolan is starting to feel that. And like, with his conversations with Allen and all of that. But, he's going to be saving a lot of fucking worlds to make up for what he's done, basically. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, all of this is really like Mark and Debbie and everybody else has a right to be mad at Nolan. And that's kind of what Oliver needs to understand yesterday, so that's the thing. And like, I get like he wants everyone to like get along and he sees his dad as a hero like Mark did, but also Mark saw the genocide that Nolan caused. Oliver didn't see that, but as you said, he can. Mark can say, look, I know how you feel about dad, but can we just watch this video for 10 minutes and then let's have this conversation again,
Yeah, because I also feel like Mark is now his, only blood relative, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And he does care about Mark. He cares about Debbie. He cares about Eve. So I feel like that should be an easy 1-for-1. Like, all right, we'll continue talking about this man who tried to kill me, used my body to kill people. Watch this fucking video. And then if you still don't agree, I'm chopping your head off, kid, because like, then you're going to turn into him. And I know you are. So we got to do this.
Chop his head off. Throw him on the fire. But But I do like the scene that we go to next when it's like Mark, Eve, Oliver, Debbie, and Paul like all sitting down at dinner. And like I like this. Like this is like the
Yeah.
family stuff that I like. Because like, Paul's trying to like meet the family and he's trying to get on with like the kids and like, just be like the nice guy. And like even though he does compare like real estate to being a superhero at one point, and they're all kind of like, what?
I didn't think
Like
the comparison was as terrible as it like.
right.
It was
Right.
like, oh, this is just like he's trying to relate. But like when he was like, oh, I messed up. Oh my god, I was like, it wasn't that bad.
No, like, you didn't just say, like, at the end of the day, you're running around saving people and everything like that. Like, you
Right.
weren't, like, drawing crazy comparisons. You were just trying to relate.
Yeah.
But I did love their faces when they were just like, yeah, yeah. And, like, Oliver just bursts out laughing because he's like, what? But it's the scene afterwards that I really like, like when Debbie's talking to him and like in the kitchen, he's like doing dish and he's like, oh my God, like, I absolutely fucked up. Like, what was I talking about? And like Debbie as well. Oh, like, this is what I love about her so much is like, she just knows how to get through to that person and just say, look, I see you for the intentions that you had there and the good that you wanted. So like, when she says to him, it's good for them to realize that there's a world out there that isn't just about superheroes and like villains and everything like that. And like, I like that
Yeah.
she's really supportive of him. And then later on, she says like, it's not about measuring up. Like, you don't have to be Nolan. You don't have to be like a superhero. It's just about showing up and being there for them. And that's what really matters. And that's what I love about Debbie is like, whoever she talks to, she always brings them back to the humanity of them. And that's what I love
Yeah.
about her.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Debbie works so
Yes.
well. Is like because of that. And like, I don't know, she gets like mom of the like decade award for all the patience she's
Right.
shown. And I do like seeing God, what the hell's his name again? The boyfriend?
Paul.
Paul. I do like seeing Paul kind of like awkwardly navigate
Yes.
because also that would make sense. This is like a new dynamic for him, right?
Yeah.
Like dating, sure, dating a single parent with a kid is a different dynamic in general, but dating a single parent with like two superhero kids, it definitely is a new dynamic to navigate, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like nobody's walking into that relationship and just being like, oh yeah, I got this. This all makes
Yeah.
sense. Like it's not even just a superhero. It's like, oh, and also there's a kid here who like is purple from
Alien
another
baby.
world.
Yeah.
Alien baby. You know what? Just go with it, Paul. You've got this. You'll be fine. You do real estate. You understand what's going on here. You'll be fine. It's like, what? So he's
Yeah.
acting the way any normal person would be coming into this family. But I think he's doing great. Like he's taken
Yeah.
a lot on, and yet he hasn't been deterred by it. Like the way that, when Debbie went to that support group and then they found out, oh, you're the wife of Omni-Man, and they basically just shunned her. Like he's taken a lot in his stride and kind of sees like,
Really
oh,
trying. Yeah.
yeah, that's not Debbie's fault. Like she's a great person. So like, yeah. And I really like Paul. It's just setting us up for that downfall of like when Omni-Man does come back and he talks to Debbie again and how that's gonna look.
Yeah.
But for now, he's perfect. That's the type of person that Debbie needs right now. Someone so far removed from the superhero world that he makes sense. He's nice and normal and he likes her. It's cute, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
He's
Ian,
like,
this yeah.
that it's like I'm always willing to forgive, especially someone who's like trying. If they're not like
Yes.
doing the great, but they are trying, I'm like, all right, this guy likes
Sure.
her enough that he is trying. And so
Right. Right. And he's there for Debbie. Do you know what I mean? And like he's taken a lot on and he's doing it not really for his sake, but for Debbie's sake as well. So I like it. Yeah. Yeah. Paul gets a pass for me. He's a nice guy.
yeah.
But oh my fucking God, I love this next bit when we see William, Rick, Mark, and Eve all like bowling together for the I just seeing these guys hang out for the birthday, I just absolutely love.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I mean, I feel like I mentioned this before, but I do really like the dynamic we're seeing with Amber,
Yes.
where it's
Yeah.
not like it's kind of like Mark was awkward, but understandably so. I
Yeah.
I was like, why wouldn't William have told him in advance? Like, just so you know, Amber's gonna be there. um, but I like that it was like Mark wasn't being like it just he felt awkward. It wasn't like he was
Yeah.
like, oh my fucking ex. It was just like he didn't know kind of
Right.
how to act. And I
Mhm.
like that she like, goes over and talks to him and like says go easy on him. And like him and the dude bond over Seance dog. And like
Yeah.
I
And
and
that's
I,
it.
I liked Amber being like, I guess I do have a type.
Yeah, no, and like that, and like it is nice that like, of course, there's going to be awkwardness there, like immediately, but
Right.
I like that she just cuts through and is like, "Hey, good to see you." Like they hug and they're just chatting, just chatting, because they were always friends. Like even behind like all of the superhero business, everything like that, there was always a friendship there. The relationship would never make sense for like where they were at. Like they just couldn't make that work. And they always respected each other like that. But yes, I do love like the new boyfriend coming in, and there could have been like sense of jealousy or whatever there,
Right.
but I love that straight away. He's like, oh, you like Seance Dog too, and then that's what gets them talking, because they're just geeking out on something that they both love, and like that makes sense for like teenagers like that. But I do like as well when
Adam,
like
that's adults like us would still do that because we're nerds.
to be fair, are we not still teenagers in here, Ian? Maybe, but yeah, but I love that as well, and I like as well when like Mark, when the news flashes up on the screen, and like this guy's Powerplex is like calling out, "I want to see Invincible," and like is trying to looks like he's going to destroy the town, and he's like, "No, fuck that! Like there are other heroes, like they can handle that." And I like that. Like Mark's like, "Nah, like I'm here for your birthday. Like screw that. Like I'm not doing anything with that." But it is just cool seeing them hang out and just be friends. Like this is the type of stuff that I love. And again, it is going at that theme and that narrative again through this episode of these superheroes aren't just one person, they are two people. Mark is Mark as well as Invincible, and that's what happens obviously when he goes later on to the memorial. But obviously he does go to see Powerplex like later on, but we do cut back to Powerplex in the street saying like, I want to see Invincible. And then I did like this title card of every time he says like the name Invincible, it's like a quick flash and then it's gone, quick flash and then it's gone, quick flash then it's gone.
I couldn't decide if I liked it or I thought it was annoying. It was like by like the third or fourth time, I was like, all right. But also I did have to like pause to check the timestamp. I think it's like minute 25 or something.
Oh yeah, it's like it feels like the longest one like so far. But it was cool. I like that. And then I like Shapesmith. Like I just like him as a character because he just doesn't like. I like when he appears, he's like, I want things too, and it's it's just so like still trying to learn how to be human and say the right thing. And like as well, and the guy's like, he's like, he loves that he has like no one knows who he is. Like, who the hell are you? Like even the police officer's like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really do like. What do you think of Shapesmith as a character?
I think he's fun. I was like, oh, is he gonna die in this scene? Like I was like, no, I like him. And I get a little worried. I don't like that Powerplex was able to overpower so many. Like he just doesn't feel like he would because everyone's so powerful and like we see faces getting punched off and shit.
Right.
I just like Powerplex didn't do it for me at all in this episode. Also, I have to point out, you watched X-Men 97, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Powerplex's outfit looked like Bastion from the 97s.
Yeah, it really did actually. Yeah, it's a good comparison actually.
In the black, yeah.
Yes, he really did. Bloody hell. Yeah, it's a good show.
Because I was like, I wonder which character came first. But like that happens a lot in comics where it's just like similarities pop up.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I like Shapesmith. I mean, Ben Schwartz is just that's who it is, right? The voice is him.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, I just think he's like charming. So
Right. I mean, like you listen to his Sonic all day, right? It just makes sense. But yeah, like every time he just said, like I liked like in the last season as well when he was like running on the treadmill, but like rather than turning the treadmill on, he's just running on the spot on the track that didn't like just dumb stuff like that. It's cool to see an alien superhero who hasn't got it all together and is just like, well, like I don't know how to act human. But nice, fun. He's good for comic relief, definitely.
Yeah.
We obviously get mention of like the memorial and everything like that that's coming up, and like Shipton, Powerplex at the point as well as seeing like the way that people on the street are looking at him differently, and he straight away he's like, no, like you should be on my side, you should be looking at me as like the hero taking down the enemy. And it's like, my guy, you're like shocking superheroes and like you're scaring your own child. How do you think people are going to look at you? Like,
right?
Like no one's looking at you thinking that guy, we can trust that guy. We get that Mark and Eve are getting ready for the memorial, and we get this conversation again where like Mark's kind of confiding in her and saying, look, like I do feel guilt because like I was there when a lot of these people died, and like she kind of reassures him and says like, look, like you lost people as well, Mark, like this, you weren't going out there deliberately to murder people. Like you were kind of like the thing that was used in many ways to kill people. This is not your fault. You shouldn't be apologizing for the actions of your father because that's not fair on you. You shouldn't be carrying that guilt.
Yeah. And I mean, she's right?
Absolutely. Yeah. She's like speaking truth. Eve is really good in the way that Debbie is. And that's what I really like about them is that she's able to speak to Mark on a level that he kind of gets, like, she gets where he's coming from every single time and isn't just like humoring him. She's like, no, like, let's actually talk about that. And like what she says makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, like I like Amber, but in a way that Amber could not.
Yes. Yeah, because right, because like she's talking about like Mark as a person and as a superhero,
Yeah.
and that's what I've always said. Like that's the big dynamic, and the difference here is that Eve is fully in with Mark 100%. Amber could only go so far, and then that's as much as she could understand Mark because she's not a superhero, And then we saw when Anissa came down and basically threatened to snap her neck. We saw how Amber reacted. Whereas had that been Eve, it might have been different,
Yeah.
So there is that. But I'm really starting to warm to them together. I don't know about you, but like for me, like I like seeing them together. Like them as a couple, I'm a fan of them.
Yeah, no, I like them. I mean, they always made sense, and we kind of knew
Yeah.
that that's is what we were leading towards, even when like Mark and Amber at their peak cuteness or whatever. I felt like we always kind of knew we were leading towards Mark and
Right.
Eve.
Right. I do like that they fly to the memorial, like when Paul's like in the car, and he's just like, "What is going on?" And he's like, "Oliver, can you just sit in the back so it feels a little bit more normal for me? Because this whole thing is just weird." And like Mark's just flying with the car above their
I
head.
love their cut when he's like, "Oh, is there some portal? Do we have to teleport?" And they're like, "No, no, no,
Yeah.
we're going regular." And then they're just like being lifted up in the car. I did love that.
Right, yeah. It's great. And it's nice to see that lens of like superhero through this normal guy.
Yeah.
Um, when you get this quick little scene as well of Ruddy and robots are building this belt for Monster Girl, and then it turns out that he's basically found a way to like stifle that curse that she's got, right? And when she puts this belt on, turns into the monster and turns back, she isn't getting younger after that. What do you think of their relationship, Ian?
Um, is there? I felt like there was something I was forgetting. I was like, "Is there something sinister like with him that I'm forget like that we had hinted at?" No, okay.
There was just that thing of when do you remember like someone looked inside of a box and like we didn't see what was inside of the
Oh,
box, but
right.
he was
Okay.
working on something and we never really found out what.
Okay.
But it could
Because
have been
I, 'cause
this.
I
But
couldn't remember. I was like, "Am I supposed to think this is bad? Like, was this hinted at being bad before?" I like. There's always so many fucking plots that I'm like, I feel like
right,
there's like a thing that I forget, but I'm okay. Yeah. Then I mean, I
mm,
thought it was nice. I kind of forgot that that was her thing.
right.
Like once they said it, I did fully remember, but I was like,
Mm.
oh right, yeah, that's probably a problem. Like,
I'm going to admit, like them as a couple, like it's probably the last thing I'm really bothered about in the
yeah,
show. But I thought it was a pretty like a nice moment. Do you know what I mean
yeah,
between them
yeah,
that he did this for her and like he figured that out because that obviously is the curse hanging over her. So it was nice to see that.
yeah. No,
But what I'm more interested in is like the Rex and Rhea of it all. Like, so their argument, right? So obviously Rex and Rhea talking. She's like says, "Oh, by the way, I've got something to say to you. Like, I'm leaving the Guardians." And Rex is like, "What?" And like their whole like Rhea makes complete sense, like in what she's saying. Like I totally see where she's coming from when she's like, "Look, Rex, like." At the end of the day, how much longer do we have to wait to die and be brought back to life? Like, this is just ongoing. Why do we have to die so that other people's lives are okay? Why can't our lives be okay? And like, I know that Rex says, like, oh, well, like the government took away, like, they took away everything about me. So, like, this is all my identity is, like, Rex. But I'm like, yeah, but Rex, you can also go away and just live a life with this girl that really likes you. And, like, you have power to decide what you want to do with your life. Like, I know you had a lot of that taken away from you by the government and everything like that, but you can now build steps towards having a better life on your own terms right now.
see, I don't know. I feel like it's just like as Eve has shown us, it kind of is
Mm,
impossible to go back to just regular life. So I don't know. I was kind of on his side. Like I got where she was coming from, but I was more on his
mm,
side where I'm like, but their
mm,
lives aren't normal. They're just not going to be normal. And like I can't imagine either of them if they're like retired
mm.
and like something bad's happening and they see it and they just don't like be like, stay blessed, not our problem. Um,
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't really a sense of like them retiring and not being superheroes. I guess it was more like them just going away and doing their own thing, like on their own terms. So, like being superheroes on their own term rather than, I guess,
mm,
working for the Guardians, and like being part of that team with Cecil. But I don't
makes
know. I
sense.
guess I guess it was just more Rex's point when he was just like, "Oh, like this is all I am now, Rex Explode," and it's like, well, to a degree, yes, but you do have more control over who you can make yourself out to be, Rex. Like you chose that, and you can do what you want with that, right?
I guess I took her saying she was quitting the Guardians as like I'm not being a superhero, but
Right.
it makes a little bit more sense. I don't know. I felt like I understood the like Rex's point of like this is always what I've done. Like
Yeah.
and I don't have a like he doesn't seem to have an issue. So I understood she has an issue. So she wants to get out, but he seems pretty like he doesn't seem unhappy with it. So for me, I'm like, well, but if he's fine with it and like this is all he's known, but this is what he does, and he's doing something good. It's not like this is all he's known and it's something destructive or something, some like addiction problem. Like,
Right.
it's like, oh, all I've known is being a superhero, and that's what I want to be. That
Mm-hmm.
for me, that like, okay.
And I guess like it's probably scary for Rex as well, because like at the end of the day, like, he hasn't like had a family growing up or
Right.
anything. So having these people around him like is his family really.
Yeah.
Like this is all the life that he knows. So for him to take like a big risk on leaving all that he's known behind and the comforts of that to go with like, a very nice girl, it's a big choice that he has to think about,
Also, we haven't gotten enough of them for me to care about this.
Yeah.
Like, they had their nice date last episode, but that also seemed to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then like suddenly for it to be like, I'm leaving, come with me, let's go. I'm like, well, we should have built this up a little bit more. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah. And I get that, like 100%. Like, I guess like she's kind of just bouncing off like the fact that Rex showed a lot of interest in her,
Right,
but
yeah.
at the same time, it's a lot of interest because they're both, living in the same like, GDA, and that they're both working together and that they're there together. Like to ask someone, oh, by the way, like, let's all move away from everything that you've ever known. It's obviously a big ask. So like
Yeah.
Rex rightfully did have a point to question that, but I guess it was just more for me, like Rex laboring that point. I'm like, you can be a superhero on your own terms, like Rex. You don't have to necessarily like be a superhero on someone else's terms.
That's fair,
But
yeah.
which, but like he is right in like coming forward and saying like, this is all I've kind of known. Like this is a big choice for me to do that. And you're right though, Ian, like their lives will never just be normal. Like they're never just going to go away and not have powers tomorrow, because that is who they are.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued. But again, like, just seeing Rex on screen, I fucking love. Like,
Yeah.
just he is the main one of like that other team. And like, anytime anyone else is on, I'm like, okay, when are we gonna get to Rex? Like, he's the character that I love. So yeah, obviously we got like a big fight at the memorial. We see like, well, Mark and Eve are obviously laying like, flowers down. Like Eve obviously makes the flowers for Mark and like lays them down. He's reflecting on like the losses, like seeing a lot of the names and everything like that. And obviously then Powerplex turns up and like they have their big fight. And I do like the abilities of like when, Eve is straight away like, right, let's do this. And it's like throwing down the barriers and everything for the fight. It was pretty cool. He obviously does get caught and then does get arrested because the other Guardians do turn up. And I do like that little moment of when like, because Mark and Eve aren't on cool terms with them, but it's just kind of like, all right, you're here. Yep, you got this. See you later, guys.
Yeah. I feel like Mark and Eve are like, it's more like Cecil that they're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, like they've been like, they've worked with them for like,
Right.
best part of over like a couple of years now, really.
Right.
So like the beef isn't with them. The beef is with Cecil, clearly. I did like seeing Mark meet up with Donald though, and like getting a bit more like backlog about like Powerplex and like, Donald obviously does reveal him that he escaped as well. Yeah, just seeing Donald again, like he's like, oh look, like if Cecil knew about this, he would fucking like kick off, like he would go nuts. But like Donald again is like doing that thing what Cecil kind of does normally, when he's like, this is for the greater good. Like Mark should really know about this guy, right?
Oh, and I did like the idea of Mark still kind of, I forget, does Mark knows that he's like a full clone, right?
Donald.
Yeah, Mark knows that Donald's a full, okay, yeah. So I like that they have like this like kind of like a little bond. Like I like seeing Donald do like a little bit more. And like it's not like, I mean, Donald, I guess technically betraying Cecil, but like not really, right? He's just like helping what's going on.
Right, exactly. And like, yeah, exactly. He's not like, stealing information or like stealing like, GDA equipment and saying, hey, or like saying to Mark, like, this is how you take down Cecil. It's like they're both fighting a villain. Like, this is what needs to happen, basically. Let's be real.
Yeah.
We obviously do see that, obviously, I keep wanting to call him like Perplex, and it's Powerplex. I'm like, Powerplex. Like, I'm perplexed by him, but it's Powerplex. He obviously does break out, and obviously him and Mark do have their fight later on. And like, there's all of this thing of like, again, where he's like, oh, like he sets up this whole thing of when like his wife is tied up and his child's tied up. And that's the thing that brings Mark over to him. And like, Mark's trying to talk through him. And like, I do like that Mark starts by just saying that, look, like, I'll say it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you lost these people, like, this was their names. Like, Jess was there. Like, she was there with me before she died. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm truly sorry about that. Obviously, Powerplex at this point is going into his full villain arc, right? Like, he does not give a shit.
And that,
so like,
I was so annoyed by more so the wife, because I was like, she's supposed to be the more like I guess not, because she's the one that when he's like, "Oh, I'm done," she's like, "No, you're not. We got one more thing." But like, I don't understand how you're like, "No, this person is bad." If that's how he's talking to you, if he's like, "You're right, I didn't remember their names, but I do remember them. Like, I'm
Right.
sorry this happened." And the fact that they know the bait will be he will not want someone to die,
Hmm.
I'm like, can you idiots use your brain for 2 seconds? Because why is that your, like, bait and you're saying he kills people on purpose if your bait is, well, he would wanna save this
Right.
woman and child,
Hmm.
and then when he unties them and she spits in his face, I was like,
Yes.
"This dickhead." Like,
Right. She's just antagonizing the situation. Like,
yeah,
if she'd just said like to like her husband, like, look, I know like, everything that's happened is like horrendous. Like you've lost family and everything
right.
through this, but why don't we talk to this man? Like, why don't we sit down and have a conversation? It's going to be a tough one, but if we come to blows right now, like, what are we really going to resolve here? Like, let's have a conversation. Let's get things back on side and maybe build something positive from this horrendous situation. And then, obviously things go the way it does, right? When they start fighting, he starts like, he blasts Mark's head at one point, and then, Christ, when he turns around and he sees like his fried his own wife and child. And I was like, fuck, like that's
I
really fucking dark.
I did not expect. I was like, "Oh, I bet she's gonna like, a debris is gonna fall on her." Like,
Right.
I did not think the child would die too, but I thought
Right.
the wife, it's like, something's gonna happen where something he does, like,
Mm.
hurts her or kills her." Did not expect to see their, like, charred corpses.
I know. It was like so dark. And again, like, the fact that he turns around, he's like, you made me do this. And it's like, this was all you, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that's another reason why he felt like a '90s cartoon villain, because it's like,
right.
I I get that it's just like he's fully lost it, but I don't know, it was so much of him so quickly
Yeah.
that, like, I don't know, we didn't, like, get a sense of him other than vengeance.
Right. Right. Yeah. And as you said, like it's when like, a B tier kind of villain who we haven't seen a lot of before, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this guy. Like the thing is as well, like, you and I both said, Ian, like last season, like we weren't biggest fans of Angstrom, but because we kind of learned a lot more kind of from Angstrom going on, especially in like the first episode and everything of season two. And like, yes, he was kind of littered through season two until the very end. But like we kind of understood a lot more of, because he had a very similar motive, right? And like he
Right.
had like a similar thing of what he was trying to achieve, but yet he felt like better fleshed out as a
Yeah.
character, whereas this one guy in this one episode is exploring themes of what we've already seen throughout the other episodes in this series, like even Oliver to a degree. Like we're seeing like, you know everything he's standing for, and like again can understand very much where he's coming from to a point, but like we've seen a lot of this already. So yeah, like, and then again, it is very 90s villain, as you said, Ian, when he's like turns around, he's like, this is all your fault, and it's like, that was you that blasted Mark, those were your powers that killed your family, let's be real,
You
like,
set this up yourself, like,
yep, this was all you're doing. Like, what did you think was going to happen when two like superheroes are fighting and your family are right there? They're not even like, they're like 2 meters away. Like,
yeah,
what?
it's like like arm's length away and you're using these
Right.
big blasty powers, like,
Right, exactly. And this guy you villainize so much, who is like the strongest probably hero on the earth right now, as far as we're aware, and your family are right there. Like, what do you think is gonna happen, man?
right, because
But
it's even like, well, if you know that Invincible is a killer and doesn't care, like, shouldn't he have been worried about them being so close?
right, exactly, exactly. Like, at least like, I don't know, like project, like show a projection of your family there, or like I don't know, just
Right.
something else. But that was your doing. You put them there, and I know like you and your wife agreed to that, but jointly your fault, guys.
Yeah.
Um, And obviously, like, I do like that Mark like grabs him into a hug and like just like holds him like that until like he's arrested properly. Because again, like Mark is not his father, where Mark's not like decapitating people, and this is
Right.
further proof to him where like if Mark wanted to be the villain that he sees him as, he would have snapped him in half, like
Yeah.
no questions
Yes.
asked. So I do like him that he pulls him at that hug and he's like, "Look, this ain't it, man. This is not it."
Yeah.
Obviously, like he's talking with Donald later on, and like he's in the Scott is in the prison. Mark has a moment with him, talks to him, and just says, "Look, again, like I remember your family, I remember your names, I apologize." And like Scott again, it's the same thing again. It's like it's your fault. You killed my family, and when I get out of here, I'm going to kick your ass. And it's like, okay, like we've lived at this
Yeah.
point. Um, I do like again, like Mark and Eve, like on the rooftop, and like Mark again is reflecting, like, Jesus Christ, was it my fault? Like, and again, Eve is just the one that is able to cut through that and just say, look, Mark, no, like this guy was like mentally disturbed. That's what the issue was here. Like all that his focus on was just on you dying for reasons that were, yes, you were there when that happened, but you were the instrument that was used by someone else to cause that death. That was not you.
Yeah, no, and I mean, again, to your point though, it's like we've done this a lot. We're doing this a lot of like Eve giving him a pep talk, like
like come on, catch up, Mark.
And like, and she's always right, she's always correct, but like we did, I feel like we've done this the last 3 episodes. I don't know.
And I'm like, oh my god, like this is the one thing I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, we get it. Like, Omni-Man and Allen, get down to earth already. Let's start building up this, like, you know, resistance to the army. Like, so, like, yeah, at the end, when we see Angstrom with all of the different marks, all the different variants from, like, you know, the different marks that we saw kind of going into the last season, that's like a big comic book moment, by the way. So, like, to see that as, like, someone that's read, like, so far in the comics, that's, like, a huge moment. So I was like, oh, shit. Next episode should be, like, something pretty special because this goes places. But
actually, like, I was gonna ask you, so I was gonna ask you, I was like, oh, is this part of the comics?
Yes.
Because I definitely enjoyed a porn comic that was around this plot point. And I like, it was wild to be like, oh, that's okay, that's like actually from the show. I thought it was just like a thing made up for.
No, Ian, the thing that you read is canon. That's what happens. The comic book strips, that's what it looks like.
they all fuck. And
they all fuck. They all have a big Sense8 orgy. That's what happens. give me that comic. Invincible after dark. Let's go.
We're not saying no to it.
But yeah, and that's kind of it. Like, that's the ending that we get. What did you think of that little ending, by the way? Like, just with all the different marks.
I am looking forward to that. My first instinct was to think of the comic I had seen. And then I was like, I need to ask Adam about this. But yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to that. But I also do, not even just in a, like, that's what I want to see, but it does feel like Omni-Man and Allen need to get there sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to be happening. It should be the next episode based on that ending alone. It should be the next episode. Yeah, but again, like straight away, I'm thinking like, okay, so like all of these marks, obviously, it's like the evil versions of marks, right? Like a lot of them from like the different. When we saw like some of this in the last season, like the different ones, but like. Man, if they can somehow get them on side, like that army of marks against the Viltrumites, like that shit would be fire. Do you know what I mean? Like having like an army of other like half Viltrumites able to fight against full Viltrumites. If they can do that and if they can work that angle, we've got a big fight coming on and like massively.
Also, Angstrom is going to be, I think, annoying. I found him annoying a little bit last season, but I'm like, my dude, your issue is that Mark is always evil, so you wanted to punish the one good Mark. Now you're going to work with the evil Marks? That's like, that's what you're doing? Like, this is where we are? So I need Angstrom to die and go away.
Yeah, I mean, like Angstrom for me, again, is like more of a plot device to get like the marks in. At this point, I'm like, oh, yeah, you again. Okay, like, fuck off. And like, you know, however he disappears, like, whatever, I'm just like, let's get on with it. Like, Angstrom's back, great. He brought all these marks, brilliant. Angstrom, your time here is done. Let's focus on the marks, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, Ian, what was your kind of overall thoughts on the episode? And then what would you give it out of 10?
It was okay. I was wanting more, which feels like I should put on my clown makeup because I had just told you there was like too many plots. But then like the plot we did have in this didn't quite do it for me. And we we did, you know, Rex got his scene and whatever, but those scenes were like kind of like a blip. Like it wasn't right. So yeah, this was definitely, I think this was my least favorite episode so far, honestly.
Yeah, Sam, I'm there with you. Like, you know, there was things in there that I do like, right? Like, I love seeing like Mark and Eve hanging out with William for his birthday, like, and seeing Amber and a new boyfriend turn up. Like, I like that stuff, right? I like seeing them hanging out and just be friends. Yeah. I like the Rex stuff, and like, I like that we're like chipping away at Rex's backstory every time we get to like learn a little bit more about him, because that stuff's interesting, and I really like that. And as you and I have said, Ian, give us like a Rex only episode of when he's younger. That would be fucking cool. I'd love that. Yeah. You know, and I'm liking this, and I like, you know, even that ending is like got me pumped for like the next episode, but that's really what I'm hanging on to. It's like, I feel like I'm waiting now for Omni-Man and Allen to get down to earth, and like that's the biggest stuff that like they're building up to. I'm like, all right, come on, like this Powerplex, like, okay, he's like laboring points that we've already had taught to us like since episode 1 of this season.
Yeah.
Let's get to the bigger stuff where we don't know where that's going to go, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to. And they obviously are building up the big confrontation between Mark and Omni-Man when he sees him again. Mark and Oliver, when like Oliver's clearly going to be Team Omni-Man when he arrives again. And like, you know, when Debbie sees Omni-Man again, that's going to be a big moment. So like, you know, I'm just like, let's get to these really juicy points. But
yeah, I almost feel like next episode, I actually was thinking, I wonder if because we end on a cliffhanger for like Mark's story almost, if next episode will be a Allen and Omni-Man episode.
Right. And it should do, right? Like it feels like it's time. Like we need to know like what they're doing right now. Because clearly they ain't hanging out in space still just chatting. Like they're on their way, right? They should be.
Yeah, or they should be.
Right. I was like sitting at like 6 out of 10, like for this episode. What about you?
I think 5. Yeah, 5 out of 10. Yeah.
You know, fair. Like again, like it's not the top tier, like top shelf Invincible that we're used to, but it's like, you know, as we said last time, it's like an okay episode of a great show. So I'm just looking forward to seeing like how it, you know, it's like a transitional episode. It's moving things along a little bit here and there, and it's getting us towards the juiciest. All right, Ian, well, I want to say a big thank you again for jumping on to cover this. Yeah, so we're moving along nicely. Got 3 episodes left and it's done. It's crazy how quickly this is going by.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Right. Wild.
I think like having, what was it? 3 episodes that were the first?
Right. The first 3 episodes dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost feel like they should have just done like 1 or 2.
Right. Yeah. If that, because like, yeah, it's really speeded things along. The fact that like we know season 4 is coming out, but we don't know when. Like we're like, oof. But how long are we going to wait? But I am excited, and I am like looking forward to the building up of like when Omni-Man and Allen come back to Earth. I think like that's when shit's going to get real fast. And I'm looking forward to that happening, how all of that's going to play out. Even just like seeing the conversations again, as they say, Omni-Man speaking to Debbie is going to be a big moment. Omni-Man speaking with Mark, like Oliver, you know, going against Mark with his dad is going to be a big moment, right? So I'm excited for this stuff.
Yeah.
But all right, Ian, tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can find me at Ian X Carlos on all social media platforms. If you want to follow my podcast, SlayerFest98, we are at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your podcasts. Leave us a nice rating and review, please. And you can also find my horror podcast I do with Zachary Patton Garcia at My Bloody Judy on all social media platforms, and also on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere else.
Yes, go and check it out. Well done, Ian. You rattled that off. Bam, 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 bam. I think you've been doing this professionally for how long? But yes, check out My Bloody Judy as well, because they're currently covering Yellow Jackets, which Ian and I literally spoke about like an hour ago. Super, super fun. Go and check all of that out. And obviously Slayerfest as well for all the goodness there that's happening. If you want to follow this podcast on all socials, it is Last Week on Pod. Type that in, you'll find us on there. We're available on all podcast platforms to listen to, but remember, every episode is on YouTube to watch as well, so come and see Ian and I's face on there if you want to see us talking all Invincible and stuff like that. If you want to follow me, I am at Straughan87 on all social media. Just type that in, you'll find my face on there. But Ian, thanks again for doing this. This has been fun, and I'm looking forward to, you know, hitting the rest of the season with you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. All right, guys, until next time, take care.
Bye.